So, sometimes you know what you know, and sometimes you know what you don't know, and sometimes, as the Firesign Theater says, everything you know is wrong.
You know that you're wrong, but you fear you're right.
You suspect you're out of sync. You think that you're out of your mind.
Everything you know is wrong.
If you're an HBO fan, chances are you've watched one of its newest shows, The Leftovers, which takes place in the wake of a global rapture where 2% of the world's population disappeared, and it details the lives of those who were left behind. But while the rapture might make for good TV, experts argue that it doesn't actually have any roots in religious or biblical teachings. So if you think that the rapture is more than just a great subject for dramatic television shows, then everything you know is wrong. Joining me now is Dr. William Lane Craig, analytic philosopher, Christian theologian, and founder of Reasonable Faith. Dr. Craig, welcome.
Good evening.
So where did the rapture story come from if it's not in the Bible?
The theory originates with a British man named John Darby in 1827, who proposed this novel interpretation of the writings of the Apostle Paul, which no one in the history of the Christian church before that time had ever intimated. And sometimes this view is called Darbyism, after the name of its founder.
Was he interpreting Paul, or was he interpreting John in Revelation?
Well, both, but primarily it would be based in the letters of Paul to the church in Thessalonica, Greece, where Paul writes two letters to the Christian church there, describing to them the second coming of the Lord Jesus Christ and their preparation for that. And this passage is the basis for this view that prior to the final coming of Christ at the end of human history, there will be this preliminary, invisible, secret coming of Christ to snatch Christian believers out of the world prior to God's wrath being poured out.
Which is the Revelation 7 stuff.
Yes, yeah. And that would be the wrath described in the book of Revelation, John's Apocalypse. That's correct.
The various horsemen and all that. Why has this caught on so much, this Darbyism, with principally the Protestant evangelical churches, and has it taken root in Catholicism at all?
Well, the view was popularized among evangelical and fundamentalist Christians through the Scofield Reference Bible, which adopted Darbyist interpretations and then was enormously influential. This was the Bible that was used by a great many people during the 19th, 20th century, and this view then began to spread among conservative Christian Protestants and became associated with certain theological colleges like Dallas Theological Seminary and others, and so became very, very widespread within this community. But it's not a view that would be accepted by mainstream Protestants or Catholics or Orthodox or even evangelicals. It is limited to this group who adopts this so-called dispensational theology.
Yeah. It's really quite remarkable that we are seeing, really, the evolution or the transformation of, a good chunk of one of the world's major religions in 2 centuries, a religion that everybody who practices it probably figures was set in stone, 2,000 years ago.
That's what you would think. It's quite remarkable that this view would be so uncritically adopted by many churches. I think many people who are raised in Christian churches just absorb this with their mother's milk, as it were, and never think to ask themselves whether or not this interpretation of the writings of Paul and the rest of the New Testament is in fact correct. And I think when
or
you
whether
look
it makes
at
any sense at all. Dr. Craig, we're out of time, but thank you for your very cogent presentation of this. I appreciate it.
Certainly, good to be with you.
Dr. William Lane Craig. Now everything you know about the rapture is right.